Okay, now in the very last movie, we went ahead and showed you the difference between um, a hard brush and a non-hard brush, and we went ahead and created a layer on top of it, and we switched it around, or switched it underneath the layer with the black brushes to go ahead and give you a idea of what layers can do for you. Basically, what this is just whatever's stacked on top is going to be the one that shows predominantly. So we go ahead and go over, we'll go ahead and move layer 2 up again, and it's just to go ahead and give you an example that um, the information is still there in the layers, and it depends on where you move them. And now if I were to go ahead and go with a free transform brush, I can actually move those layers around so they can go ahead and be in different places. It's just moving them right here. And again, this is the flexibility of the program. Um, Very, very interesting. Now, we can do this on a photograph itself. As a matter of fact, since we did go ahead and combine images, what I want to do on this program, on this image or this document that has this picture in there, I want to go ahead and bring these two elements in, these two brushes, and I want to go ahead and move them over here so you can go ahead and see what happens. Now, I minimized that box. It's still open. The only thing is that in order for us to go ahead and go back to it, we will need to go ahead and maximize the window again. And so here's the original picture that we had opened up. And I'll go ahead and go over, open this up so we can see the other document. And now that this three windows are up, we can actually go ahead and put them all together in one line. So we can go ahead and choose what we're going to be working with. I actually want this over here on this side, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag it over. And again, this works exactly like the way you're building your workspace. So it's a very good way of organizing your images so you can see what you're working on. So although these two layers, they look like they're together, everything still is apart. So now what we're going to talk about again is the brush tool, but how you would use it to go ahead and retouch a photograph. So in here, what we're going to do is with this layer, we're going to go ahead and change the opacity. And as we're changing the opacity, you can see the layer underneath. And so it isn't that the red became pink. It's actually more that you can see what's underneath. So it's in transparency of sorts. So you can see what's underneath, but it still is affected with the layer on top because the layer on top is still slightly visible. So we'll go ahead and move that back to opacity to back to 100. When you go ahead and select the brush tool again, we have red, and what we're going to do on this time now, we're going to change the opacity of the brush, and we're going to go ahead and do the same thing as if we were changing the opacity on the layer itself. I'll create a new layer for this to give you an example. Once we go ahead and hit here, because we're working with low opacity 27, you can see the layer underneath a lot more clearer. We raise the opacity and we color this brush. As you can see, the red is more apparent. If we go ahead and move the hardness to 100, you can still see underneath somewhat. And if I go ahead and move this around, you can go ahead and start seeing that there is some transparency here, but it's not at 100%. And as we go ahead and go to 100% on this right here, um, it covers absolutely everything. And so, again, this is again the complexity of Photoshop. This concept of the brush can be used for different things. What I will do now in the layers panel, I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to go ahead and click on layer number 2 so I can highlight the 3 layers that have um, those paint strokes on there. And I'll press delete, or I'll press the little trash can icon and ask me if I want to delete the layers. I'm going to select don't show me this again. I'm going to select yes. So now I know that I did go ahead and skip over the eyedropper, and we're going to use that to go ahead and take a sample of the color um, right here. And the reason why we want to do that is because we want to use what we learned with a paintbrush and do something with the skin. And so um, if you notice, if I went ahead and hold my uh, paintbrush or my eyedropper tool, I have a new um, dialog. But this is a HUD, and this shows me the color that I had before underneath and the new color I'm choosing now. So you can see the difference of the colors that I'm choosing. So very interesting. Another thing I want to point out, when you go ahead and have the paintbrush open up, if you were to go ahead and hold down shift and right click, or I think actually it's shift alt and right click, this is what you call the color wheel. And so here you can choose a color, and it works very interesting because you can come in and choose a different color of the prism and the color spectrum, and then choose the luminosity levels here. And once you get the color that you want, you let it go, and now on your color picker you have that color. And that helps you by not having to come back into color picker and choosing this, which is the same thing. You go ahead and choose a color, you go ahead and choose the luminosity level, but now you can go ahead and do that directly from the paintbrush by holding down shift and alt and pressing them together with a right click. And if you're not too familiar with the color wheel, you can go ahead and go to edit, and once you go to edit, you can go to um, preferences, and I think it's going to be under interface. And no, it's under general, and you can choose hue strip, and that will give you more like the color picker, where you go ahead and hold again shift alt and the right click button, so you have your color picker right here, and that way you don't have to go ahead and get away from the paintbrush. Um, and also, if you hold down the Alt, you do get the eyedropper tool, and this allows you to go ahead and take a sample of the color on the layer. So by doing so, you have several options to go ahead and select color on the fly. And with skin, you don't want to go ahead and work with hardness 100, and you don't want to work with 100%, because I did go ahead and take a darker sample of her skin, and I wanted to darken the color of her arm. Um, it wouldn't blend very well. Now, even if we were to go ahead and lower the opacity here and color, it did go ahead and darken up the arm, but you can see the edge of it. So the other thing is again, don't work with hardness at 100% when you're working with people. Here, we just went ahead and selected a different um, hardness is 0, and the opacity is still at 19% like the other one, except you can't see the edge because this is soft edge. And now, the last thing that I want to show you is that under your layers panel, you do have blending modes. You also have blending modes when it comes to a paintbrush. So let's say there is this darker area of her hair, but if you notice on here, and I'm going to go ahead and raise my opacity level and zoom in a little bit, if I were to go ahead and choose this color right here on her face and paint, it would actually go over her head at 100% over her hair. So what I would want to do is keep the darker color, which is her hair. So I would use a blending option of darker color. And so by doing so, I choose this dark color right here, and I go ahead and select, and as I go up, it does not paint on the darker color. It keeps it keeps everything else except the darker color. So that works very interesting. And so I'll go ahead and select this so you can see that working again, and it does not go ahead and paint into the darker color. And so very interesting. So if you go ahead and use the darker color setting, you go ahead and work with a lower opacity, like let's put it at 17. When you come in here and you darken the arm, it's not going to affect the color, versus you had normal, it would affect the hair. And the same thing, you want to go ahead and work with luminosity levels. So right here, this would probably be a lighter color than here. So it depends on what you're working with, because you can choose darker color, you can choose lighter color, and the rest of the blending options, I'll go more into detail of what they do in a later movie.